Hello, friends. I am Jackie Smith Bell, and it is indeed a pleasure to just share a word or a message to remind you that God is still performing miracles in our life, even when life seems messy. And I say that because right now I believe we're all going through phases of moments where life just looks messy. Like we have so many uncertainties that are in our lives right now that it's just messy. It's to the point to where we don't know what's going on, and even when we get information, it's misunderstood to the point to where we're saying, God, we just need a miracle. We need something to happen because this storm that we're in presently right now, we didn't choose it, but somehow we're in it. And I think that's just how life is, isn't it? Storms happen, and though someone may tell us they're coming, when we get in the storm, we're just saying, wait, what? Here in this storm of the pandemic, we barely had any notice before it began to pose problems in our life. Immediately there was isolation. Immediately jobs were lost or slowed down. The work, everything just changed. And we find ourselves in the midst of this storm trying to navigate through the waters of the new normal that we have to begin to live in. Storms. One thing about a storm, we have to have faith to believe that the same way that we're in the storm, that God is with us because He says that He will never leave us nor forsake us. And the storm will not lock Him out from His love or His promise to stay with us. Whenever I began to prepare for this message, I began to look at heroes of faith. And of course, I went to the book of Hebrews where it talks about the heroes of faith, where it spoke about Moses, Abraham, where it spoke about Sarah, Noah. All of these were heroes of faith that we could say that they did heroic things that caused us to speak about what they did. When we think of a hero is often an individual that have these super powers to do something that others cannot do. So whenever I looked at Hebrews and it began to talk about heroes of faith, and I'm looking at all these people, I also had to begin to look at the heroes of faith in my life. As I told you from the beginning of my message, my name is Jackie Smith Bell, and I am married to Philip Bell, and he has a large family that I'm part of. And one of the things that we like to say about who we are as Bells is that we are Bell strong. And we say that because of the basis of our faith. We've had to persevere through some storms that they were not good, they were bad, but we persevered, we endured them, and came out better. That's faith strong. That's Bell strong. I know you can actually put your last name and back it up against something strong and say that's who you are, strong. And on the basis of that, it was built on the backdrop of your endurance and your perseverance through hard times. You came out of the storm. I'd like for you to go with me to a part of text in Matthew 14 and 28 where it talks about a storm. It's a familiar story of a storm that the disciples were in. But this story in particular is about faith strong in the storm and that you can do things by keeping your eyes fixed on Jesus. Faith strong for the storm. When we look at the story in Matthew 14 and 28, it picks up where Peter is asking God, can he come to him? If we go back a little bit, we see that during this time, the storm was raging. As a matter of fact, there were 12 disciples in a boat. 11 of them were terrified. When they saw Jesus walking across the lake, they thought he was a ghost. So here they were, terrified of the storm and terrified of what they were looking at. But Peter says, in the midst of everything raging in his life, Peter's faith began to be strong because he said something that said he could do what Jesus was doing. He said, Jesus, if that is you, bid me to come to you. And Jesus said to Peter, come. Who knew that faith had a voice? What do you need to hear faith say in the midst of your storm? Do you need faith to say that you need to take a different path even in the problems of your marriage or in your motherhood or even with your money? What does the word of God say that your faith needs to rise to in the moments where it's weak? Faith has a voice. And here, God gave a command, or Jesus gave a command. He said, come. Anytime when Jesus gives a command, that's based on the fact that there's safety within his words. God is calling us to a place of becoming. And it's not always presented when the weather is well. Oftentimes, who we are to become is actually commanded of us in the midst of a storm. Peter was in a storm when his faith had to be strong. So Peter goes, he gets out of the boat, he leaves the 11 men who are terrified. His faith rises to a point to where he listens to God or listens to Jesus, and he begins to walk on water. Once he's walking on water, it's like you and I, we begin to do something that we feel that we're called to do, and all of a sudden we start getting too comfortable and stuff happens. We take our eyes off of the focus in which we're supposed to be going to. We take our eyes off Jesus. We take our eyes off God, and we begin to sink. That's what happened to Peter. In the beginning, he was looking to God. He was looking to Jesus. And when he began to notice what was around him, he began to sink. Oftentimes, we're in the space of what we're becoming, but because we begin to look over at what someone else is doing, we begin to sink because what we're looking at is what they're going through, but that's not what we need to see because that's not the path in which we're supposed to follow or go to. When we're looking in the area of someone else's life, we begin to look at who they are and take our focus off of who we are to become. When Peter began to look at the waves that was raging in his life, he began to sink. And as soon as he began to sink, he began to know who could save him. Many times in life when we're sinking, we go to the wrong people to save us. Therefore, we don't get to the space of our becoming because we're looking at the wrong people to follow. Who are you following in your faith walk? What Peter did, he recognized that no one could get him to the point to where he needed to be saved other than Jesus. So he said, Lord, save me. And the Lord saved him. But when he was saved, there was something that was said to Peter. And I often say, was Jesus throwing shade at Peter? Because he saved him, and then he said, O ye of little faith, why do you doubt? Why do you doubt? Whenever I looked at that, I said, I don't think that Jesus is trying to throw shade. Let me find out, why did he say, O ye of little faith? Because to me, Peter had a lot of faith. His faith was strong enough for him to say, Jesus, bid me to come to you. That takes a lot of faith because nobody else had walked on water. But when he began to sink, Jesus now says that, O ye of little faith. I thought about that. But then whenever I did the research, I realized that what Jesus was saying is that sometimes our faith can be brief. Now, Peter started out on this journey with strong faith. He began to walk on water. But when he began to get tossed to and fro and he began to look at the storm, he became weak and he began to sink. Our faith has levels. As a matter of fact, when we look at the Greek definition of little, it is actually saying brief. In other words, there's sometimes our faith will be strong, and then there's sometimes it will need help. It will be weak. Jesus wasn't throwing shade. He was saying that there's an amount of faith in the situations of our storm that we need to grow into in order to conquer the crisis of the storm that we're in. We are all at a point to where we need to have faith to get through this storm of this pandemic. Because where we are now in the storm is not where we're going to be when the storm ceases. Those disciples could have easily said, all of them, make the storm stop. But Peter said, bid me to come. We have to have enough faith to know that even when the storm does not stop, we can go close to God and find safety. And even if we get distracted and begin to sink, we can call out to God and say, save me, and he will. Faith strong into who you are and who you are becoming. Ladies, that's my word for you today. Stand in faith. You're going to have a lot some days, and you're going to have a little. And the thing is, none of that catches God by surprise. He's still able to keep you. He's still able to save you. And he's still able to bless you in the moments that you're becoming more. I pray that there's something that I've said that has been something that you can tuck away in your heart and believe God for the moments in life that you're becoming. God bless you.